You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hi, I'm MEZ, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Ryan, and you're listening to Season 5 of the Iterators of the Imperium podcast, the podcast in which Ryan is the expert on Warhammer 40K, and I am the noob trying to learn about the Warhammer universe. And I don't know if it's clear from my voice right now, but I am indeed sick. But the show must go on. So, as soon as I shut up, it started to sound like normal. So, Ryan, you take the wheel. We're talking about the War of Armageddon, Part 3. Let's go.
Yes. Third War for Armageddon, Part 3. And MEZ is just going to be quietly-ish dying in the corner over there as he tries to process what he's going through.
I'm also invincible if anybody's watching through, well, not listening on Spotify, but watching on YouTube and Spotify. Like,
yeah, MEZ is slightly transparent today. We've had some uniform mismatches, I guess. I don't know what the term is.
I look like
wardrobe
a
malfunction. That's the term. Wardrobe malfunction. That's it.
I look like a flying head, but it's actually kind of a look, you know.
Yeah, honestly, it's quite cool.
Yeah.
So, last time, obviously, we continued the War for Armageddon. We got into it properly. Whole war was kicking off. There were fucking traitors from the first round coming back and taking over cities. They'd been murdered by prisoners. There was, I guess, semi-heretical space marines abandoning the planet after stealing part of Angron's axe. There was all kinds of manner of shit going down. So, we're basically coming to the end of this war in this episode, just so you know.
Ooh, okay, right? Good knowledge.
But it's not the end of the whole season. It's just the end of this war, because, like I said, there's a few things that kind of roll one directly into the other, and you'll see how that goes as this goes on. But the first part of this is actually just kind of funny. It's just really bad, like, strategics on the part of the Orks, which is kind of amusing. So the next kind of major event after the whole battle in the jungle and stuff is at Gitana Bay, where a war boss called Judroth Irontooth. There's a lot of Irontooths.
There really is.
Yeah, they're like every arsehole in his dog is part of this Irontooth group. But he decided to attack Gitana Bay, and just out of nowhere, his genius mind goes, "You know what I'll do? I'll just send in every deffdread and killacan that I have. That'll sort it out. That'll just win immediately." Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I don't think we've ever really covered what a deffdread or a killacan is, right? The way you think about them is, you know how the Imperials have dreadnoughts?
Yeah.
Think of it as the orc version of a dreadnought.
Oh,
right?
God.
So I'll show you some here, right? So this is a deffdread, big orky robot walker thing, right?
Yeah.
This is what like the models tend to look like. Or there's this kind as well, right? They got a bit more a bit more menacing as time went on, because these are two different generations of models. They went from like funny orky death robot to like straight up like Disney villain death robot with like spinning saws and stuff.
Disney villain.
It has to have skulls, it has to have claws, even though what does a claw do as a weapon? Like, you know what I mean? Standard stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I'll show you the killacans too, which are basically just a smaller, less impressive version of the same thing. So this guy just gets every one of these robots that he can and sends them in to take out Gitana Bay. That his plan is this will immediately win the day with overwhelming force, right? Which is a great idea in theory. What he was not prepared for is that when they managed to knock some holes in the defenses of Gitana Bay and actually get the deffdreads and stuff inside, they were greeted with 17 venerable dreadnoughts. And I've got a good picture for these guys. This is one of the Space Wolf ones. It wasn't this guy, but you get the idea. Giant, much more menacing, probably much better quality death robot.
Yeah.
And I believe actually, there's a model of a different kind as well. These are what they look like if you play them in the actual game. But still bigger and more menacing than the deffdreads and stuff, I would say. In terms of like this kind of war, I would say this looks a bit scarier. It looks like it knows what strategy and tactics are. You know?
Yes, it has a brain.
It looks like it has a brain, which makes it somehow scarier. I don't know why. So, immediately upon getting inside Katana Bay, or inside its defences, they were greeted with 17 of these fuckers that proceeded to absolutely ravage the Orks. It was a pretty rough day for the Orks, and shortly into this, I'm going to say battle that took place. It wasn't really a battle; it was more a massacre. But shortly into it, the Imperial Aeronautica, their air force, turned up and started bombing the shit out of the Orks, like strafing runs and stuff. Think like Helldivers. Just straight strafing runs and stuff, clean over the Ork lines. So the Orks just went, fuck this, and ran. So deffdreads and killacans were gone, and their actual Orks were being gunned down by planes. Like, yeah, we'll just leave it at that, I think. Just gonna back up slowly.
Yeah, I'm not on this for today.
I'm just not feeling it. You know, I woke up with like a sore neck. Maybe I'll try this one again, once it's eased off a bit. So yeah, not the smartest move in Ork history, but you gotta admire the effort.
Yeah, A for effort.
Oh yeah, A for effort.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to cover a wee bit of like a backstory thing next, right? So this is like proper lore backstory stuff that has very little to do with what's actually going on, right? But you'll see where we're going. This is the Ghazghkull part of it. So, do you remember Makari, his little grot that he made that's like, spans space and time? He's not just like that one grot. He's whichever grot needs to be Makari.
Yes.
Yeah. So, obviously, he died a bunch of times, right? So, do you remember when Ghazghkull beat up the Bloodthirster to take over their Space Hulk right at the start when he was first getting off his planet? Yeah. In that fight, I don't think I mentioned it, in that fight, Makari is killed. He's thrown out into space and just kind of freezes.
I don't think you mentioned that, no.
I don't think I did. It wasn't particularly relevant at the time. But shortly after that, Makari was just reincarnated as a different grot. He just woke up as a different guy and was like, okay. But I had no idea who he was or where he was that time, and it gradually came back to him. And since then, he's died a few times. Ending with the end of the Second War for Armageddon, when Ghazghkull, turns against the gods and kills Makari outright himself as, like, a way to show he is turned against the gods. Which we did mention.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the end of Makari, and Ghazghkull was left after that with, like, the doctor that had brought him back to life in the first place as his, like, guide. And that's how he was roped into going back to the Third War for Armageddon.
Yeah.
So there's no Makari at this point, but one of Ghazghkull's lieutenants, so one of the captains he originally, went around and, like, beat into submission to get them to join him, dude called Bullets, which we have talked about before, he goes to Ghazghkull and explains that, like, Makari was a sign of, I guess, a morale kind of thing. He was the banner waver, so like he didn't do much for fighting, but having him charging in with the rest of the boys, it made them feel like Ghazghkull was with them. It made them feel like the gods were with them. So he was a big sign of morale.
Yeah, he's the glue that kept them together, to not panic.
Yeah, kind of, yeah, a bit of that.
A symbol, right? He was a symbol.
He was a symbol. That's exactly what Makari was. He was a symbol. So, Bullets goes to Ghazghkull and he basically argues with him to explain that we need Makari back. The guys need to have Makari at their side. In reality, there's a part of that, but also Bullets just liked Makari and he missed him. So, Ghazghkull just grabs a random grot and turns him into Makari. Because the way he does it is he puts his claw on him, puts his hand on him, and it burns the shape of his hand onto the grot. And in the process, the grot becomes Makari. It's like a blessing from the Prophet of Gork and Mork, I guess. So this grot just wakes up as Makari all of a sudden. Is like, where the fuck am I? And he quickly realizes that Ghazghkull only brought him back to placate Bullets and the other orcs. So he just throws himself in front of a bunch of gunfire and kills himself. Because fuck you, basically. he's not gonna, like, you gotta remember, Makari feels so unbelievably wronged by what Ghazghkull did to him that until Ghazghkull admits, like, or until Ghazghkull's willing to own up to it, he doesn't want to help him, you know?
Yeah.
There's no loss to Makari in dying, he'll just come back.
Yeah.
Right? So, as long as it'll piss off Ghazghkull, he may as well just keep ending himself over and over so as to not help him, as long as Ghazghkull's going to be a dick about it.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Until Ghazghkull starts realizing what he's done is wrong, and that he's, you know, being a dick. Makari's going to be just as much a dick back to him. So, this leads into a cycle of Ghazghkull bringing Makari back just for Makari to immediately kill himself. And this goes on for a while.
Oh, gosh.
But towards the kind of... Well, no. A while into the war. I was going to say towards the end of the war. Towards the end of the war for Ghazghkull. Makari is reincarnated one more time. And he is kind of thrown off guard by the fact that he immediately finds Ghazghkull talking directly to him, rather than, like, ignoring him or talking, you know, to other people like Makari, about Makari, as if Makari isn't in the room, which is what he usually did. That kind of stuff. He just didn't acknowledge him. But this time, he wakes up and has Ghazghkull speaking directly to him. And Ghazghkull kind of explains that he can't apologize because a true orc would never apologize. But he knows he's done a couple of things wrong, right? From where they were to where they've ended up, he knows he's not done the right thing a couple of times at least.
So he's apologizing without saying sorry.
He's admitting fault without apologizing in a way. He's like, I know I fucked up, but I'm not gonna say sorry because that makes it seem like, so it's that kind of thing. And then he, like, has Makari look out over, like, the battlefield that is Armageddon with him. And he's like, it could be so much better. They're, like, looking out at this massive war, and Ghazghkull's like, it could be so much better. If I just listened to the gods, it would have been way beyond this scale. And this whole deep, meaningful conversation is ended quite quickly when a Lehman Russ tank rocks up and blows a hole through Ghazghkull.
Yeah. I'll do it.
That'll put an end to that conversation.
Yep.
So, Makari does save Ghazghkull. He climbs into the tank and murders the tank crew, and then goes back to Ghazghkull. And Ghazghkull, at this point, being heavily injured and stuff, and having his life saved by Makari just moments before, he admits that he did wrong by Makari. So rather than just, I did a couple of things wrong, it's, I know I wronged you personally. He's finally admitting to what he had actually done wrong, rather than keeping it vague so he doesn't have to face up to what he did. And he talks about how he intends to leave Armageddon again, leave the war unfinished for the second time, and follow what the gods had planned for him. The Great Wa, right? This whole thing of turning the stars green. That's what his goal is now. Fuck Armageddon. This was a waste of time. We should never have came back here. There is a bigger picture, and I'm finally seeing it again. So, with that, Ghazghkull and Makari, and a couple others, just fuck off from Armageddon, leaving the war to continue with Ghazghkull's generals running it. This leads Ghazghkull to taking part in the Octarian War. You know, the Orc Empire mentioned before the Third War for Armageddon. With the Tyranids? Yeah. So we're going to swap over and look at that. That's the next major thing. But like I said, because Ghazghkull goes from one directly into the other, the stories all kind of roll back to back. There's going to be a bit of setup stuff we have to do, which will be next episode. But we're going to finish out the third war for Armageddon after Ghazghkulls left in this episode.
Okay.
Okay. So from this point on, Ghazghkull's gone, right? He's fucked off to go do bigger, better things, and he's left his generals in charge of the war.
Yeah.
Now, you might remember, but it has been a while since we last recorded. It's been a bit. MEZ is on holiday and whatnot, so it's been a little bit. You might remember I had mentioned that the 13th Black Crusade was about to happen. That's why the Relictors left this planet and like just abandoned the war after they got the shard from Angron's axe, because the 13th Black Crusade and the Fall of Cadia was like 6 months out. So this war is still going on when Cadia falls. And after, I might add. Right? Now, I'm going to throw up this picture of the Great Rift that formed after Cadia fell. Right? And basically directly above your head and a little bit to what would be screen right. Yeah, over there. Yeah, that kind of direction. Armageddon sits in that kind of area, right? It's fairly close to the Great Rift. So, not a great place to be when it first tears across the galaxy. But there's a thing that I don't know how much we've talked about. I don't think we've mentioned it in any great detail. But there was an event called the Blackness that occurred after this Great Rift opened. So, it's called the Blackness, or there's like 18 other names. There is Noctis Aeterna, which in English is Eternal Night. There's the Blackness, there's the Days of Blinding. It's a whole fucking list, right? They have to have a million names and a million different poncy ways of saying it. It's a whole thing. Basically, what happened was the light from the Emperor's golden throne that shines within the warp disappeared. It was no longer there. So no one had any way of traveling within the warp. Or humanity didn't have a way to travel within the warp. Because they didn't have, like, this beacon to guide, like, to direct themselves from as a point of reference. Yeah. So this happened for a while. They didn't have any way to travel properly. So no human reinforcements could get to Armageddon. Right? Couldn't get anywhere else either. Basically, every planet was isolated from the others. But they couldn't get to Armageddon.
Going blind. They didn't try.
Well, they could try, but they usually just die.
I mean, whatever. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, right?
Well, that's true. The Emperor protects and all that shit.
Yeah, like, if it's meant to be, you can go in blind. He'll guide you.
Yeah. So there was a couple other things that came from this. In this same period, you've got to think that with this big rift open across the galaxy, the warp has much more influence on the material world, right? But also, the initial opening caused a lot of chaos, like weird warp storms all over the place and shit like that. So there was... no one could travel properly in the warp without getting mulched by a warp storm. Astropaths couldn't send messages through the warp to each other. What else was there? Demon incursions all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
I think this was like the first time since the Horus Heresy that demons ever set foot on Terra. So, yeah, pretty bad time. But obviously, Orks couldn't travel to Armageddon to reinforce, and neither could humans. So it was just the people on the planet were left to, continue the war as was.
Yeah.
But, fun thing... as this, like, human-on-orc massive war is going on, demons started popping up all over the planet.
Ooh.
Yeah, just demon incursions started occurring all over the place. Just hundreds of thousands of the fuckers, everywhere.
Amazing.
Yeah. Now, Armageddon is a planet that Khorne really wants, because... I don't know why, but there's a thing with it, because, like, Angron attacked this place and was defeated here. Back at the first war for Armageddon, and he is Khorne's big guy. So, like, Khorne's got a vested interest in seeing this planet get fucked up. So there's a bunch of Khorne's demons that turn up here and start fucking everything up. And also a bunch of Tzeentch's dudes turn up and start fucking everything up.
Yeah.
The only benefit to this for the orcs or for the humans is that both of these demon types hate each other. So as much as it was like a four-way free-for-all, it was also like the Khorne demons versus the Tzeentch demons, and humanity and the orcs versus both of them. Like, it was a pretty common sight to see an orc back-to-back with a human gunning down demons until they eventually turned on each other, because they're not allies, but they'd rather kill demons than each other.
A temporary alliance, isn't that what you say? Or like agreement, right?
Yeah, aye.
With the common enemy, yeah.
Yeah, the common enemy was the issue here.
Yeah.
So this led to the planet getting pretty heavily fucked up, I'll be honest. And this continued for basically the entirety of the Days of Blackness. Eventually, once that passed and the light of the Astronomicon came back and the warp started to settle a little bit and stuff, reinforcements started to turn up from all sides. So humanity started getting ships in, orcs started piling in from nearby planets and stuff, and the war ramps up again. All the demons really stood to do was extend the war by putting more people in it. They didn't really turn the tide in any particular direction. They kind of just added more gunfire and more bodies to the fray. So they really did very little in the long run.
Well.
Yeah. Although, because of the sheer number of demons on the planet during that time, when reinforcements did turn up, the planet was like half demon planet. The landscape had all warped and went all creepy and chaosy.
Nice.
Yeah, really disgusting.
It's quite bad, but it looks beautiful. It looks cool.
Yeah. So the war never actually ended up until the modern day, right? As far as like the actual lore is concerned, this war is basically still going on, with just humans being constantly shipped in, orcs being constantly shipped in, and demons turning up all the time. It kind of just kept going in this state of like people dying every second and no one ever really making any progress. There is a whole storyline with when the reinforcements turn up after the Days of Blindness, they send in a bunch of space marines and stuff to, you know, try and actually provide some real relief, right? You can send in 2 million guardsmen, but like 40 space marines is better. So like they send in proper numbers of space marines to try and actually help. But they end up involved in this whole storyline with a bunch of the demons trying to re-summon Angron onto the planet. And that's a whole thing, and I feel like we should cover it properly in a season focused on chaos stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's very much a chaos-focused storyline.
It is.
Yeah, so I feel like maybe if we do a season that we're like, let's just look at Angron being a dick, because he's like back doing stuff again now. There's a you know what I mean? There's whole extra storylines with him in the modern day, so we could do that and just like look at the 80 times people have failed to summon this guy again in the middle.
Why do I feel like that was like you did a setup for like a cinema trailer here? Angron is back, and he's even more angrier than ever, right? Like,
you're not wrong. That is basically what the tagline for the Angron the book was.
Oh god damn!
You know, it's really funny, right? So I read that book when it was like first released, like the day it was out. I had it, I read it, right? It was a good book. It was a good book. But it's one of those that like Warhammer 40K novels tend to do this thing where they have 3 storylines, right? And it's like 3 different characters' perspectives that all gradually form or interlink with each other in different areas, or gradually form together to end at some big culmination of all the storylines at once, right? And the Angron one had a similar thing. And one of the storylines was about a bunch of Grey Knights that survived the first war for Armageddon, hunting him down, and they all just get murdered. Like, they accomplish nothing. Like, they don't slow him down, they don't hurt him, they don't kill him. I'm pretty sure there's a point where they actually make him actually happy for the first time in his life. You're like, yeah, I see why this was an Angron novel and not a fucking Grey Knights one, because they did shit all. I think all they did was kill themselves, basically. They tried.
A for effort, I guess.
Tell you what, though, good book, regardless. It was a very good book. Just the Grey Knights in it were startlingly ineffective. Although, again, it is Angron, so I guess the whole point is he's supposed to be better than anyone, really. You know what I mean? What's the point in having Primarchs if they're not, like, an Ex Machina type thing where they turn up so they win? I reckon we're going to have a storyline soon of Lionel Johnson impaling Angron. I feel like that's why they brought him back. Like, because they brought Angron back, and then, like, a month later, they were like, Lionel Johnson, go! You're like, yeah, I think I see where this is going. Somehow I feel like Gilliman's not taken to the field to beat Angron to death. I don't see that happening. But I could see old man Johnson getting him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. So, as we leave off with the third war for Armageddon, the war is still going on. The planet is fucked because it's like half demon world now. And there's no real end in sight. That's the gist of it. It's kind of just gonna roll on this massive war for God knows how long. It's probably gonna be the next Kalia. I guess that is kind of the state of Armageddon as we leave it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our boy Ghazghkull in the next episode.
Yes.
What we'll probably have to do is, like I mentioned, the Octarius War was going on. It started off a bit before this, before the third war for Armageddon. So there's a bit of ground we have to cover before Ghazghkull shows up there to help out. And then we'll finish out that war. And then I think there's a little bit extra we need to do with Ghazghkull after the Octarian War, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Sure thing.
So, I think that's us for today. Would you like to round out?
Well, I sure can do. I can try. I'm sick, you know. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to this episode of Iterators of the Imperium podcast. We really enjoy and appreciate you guys' support. I've seen on TikTok as well that we've been gaining some more views actually on TikTok of all platforms.
I know, right?
One video hitting over 10K or something nice. It's actually kind of crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it?
So if you're not already and you're listening right now to this outro, please go follow us on TikTok. That's kind of lit. But it's been me, MEZ, and Ryan, and we will see you next time where hopefully I am not sick and can participate a little bit more. But yeah, take care and peace.
Bye.